a lot of that was done by hand with whether it's a pocket knife or a razor knife. Enough of that sticking out that you're going to be able to get a split ring or your snap or whatever on there. It is always best if you've got that bill slot cut to where the bill can go just straight all the way, smooth to the back. That one's pretty straight. You could really sling that one out there, but he does sink. Just between the hooks, the split rings, the line ties, and the bill, we have a sinking bait here. Boy, that's pretty close there now. That's a pretty running little dude. Hey everybody, welcome back. We are here in the garage and this is part 3 of making a crankbait. And if you've watched along, you know part 1 was just getting the blank, taking the big block of balsa wood, getting that down into the blank and then routering that, you know, to get our initial shape. Part 2 was a lot of the, you know, kind of the construction of the bait, drilling the wires, cutting the bill slot, you know, getting all those things into position. A lot of factors going into to part 2 of this. Part 3, we're here to really do the kind of the final assembly, a little bit of the final pieces, and then actually gluing the bait together. And then we'll go finish this up with a water test of it to actually see how these baits run. We did a weight test in the end part of part 2 to select, you know, which weight, but we're going to go ahead and just build them with all 3 of those weights that we tested with and see which one ends up being the best. Like we said, that heaviest one, you know, we determined probably in the end of part 3, by the time you got all the clear coats and everything on it, would probably be a sinking bait. Number 2, you know, should be the one which was, I think, a 3-gram weight. It's probably the one to go with, or either that or actually taking a little bit off of that heaviest one. So enough of that. Next step up, what we're going to do here now is actually make the wires that will be the line tie as well as the rear hook hanger. Your front hook hanger, it's already taken care of. That's molded in to that belly weight, but we've got to make the line tie as well as that rear hook hanger now. So I like to use copper wire. I think it's got a lot of benefits. For one, it is very easy to use. It's very soft, it twists really easy. And then once it's actually in the bait, it's really easy to tune. Now, it can get knocked out of tune a little bit easier due to how soft it is, but I like the benefits of copper wire. And to me, a lot of those old school baits, they used copper wire. They didn't have stainless wire, you know, readily available back in those days, I guess, or cost of it, whatever it may be. But I like copper wire. So I'm going to take that roll of copper wire and I'm going to cut off a piece, I don't know, 4 inches long, 5 inches long, something like that. And then I'm going to double that over. Okay, I'm going to bend that, try to bend those ends together, just like that. And now I'm going to hold that with a pair of pliers right there on the end, okay? And then in my drill here, I already have what is a finish nail that I have bent over, kind of shaped like a hook with no barb, to put in that loop on the wire. And now I'm just going to hold tight with these pliers and I'm going to start going slow with that drill, and that's just going to twist that wire up. I want to twist that down real nice and small. Now I made that piece of wire way too long. I could have done that with a lot less. Probably could have made 2 out of that piece, but now I've got a real nice, small, tight loop there. It's not perfectly round. I don't care. To me, that really doesn't matter. If it did, I could take that pair of pliers, I could squeeze it just a little bit and kind of get it a little bit more rounded shape. So if you're really particular, now that kind of oblong is now round. And like I said, that's way too long, so I'm going to trim that down. I know about how deep that I drilled those with that with the drill bit. That will be somewhere right in there. That'll be plenty. That'll be plenty enough to be strong in that bait. No worry of that ever pulling out. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off. Again, another reason I like copper wire. It cuts really easy. So there we go. There's one finished line tie or rear hook hanger, whichever one that ends up going in. We've got 3 baits we're gonna finish up here, so I've got to do 5 more of these. So I'm gonna do that here right quick, but got to make 5 more of those line tie hook hangers. I had just enough wire left on that roll to do what I needed to do. It's almost like it was meant to be. Some of these might end up being a little bit shorter, but they should be about right. Pinch that right there. All right, so there's the last one of those. All twisted up real nice and tight. Sometimes with those pliers, you know, those ends will kind of fray out a little bit. So I'll just trim a little bit of that off on each one of those, just so it's something nice and clean to go in the bait with. Again, any of that if it's got a little kink in it or something, you can always fix that post glue. Once it's secured in the bait is an easy way to do that. All right, so we've got us 6. We've got us weights. We've got us bills. We've got all the pieces, I think, that we need now to do the final assembly. I always like to do a dry fit. I like to make sure that everything's going to go into place right, that the line tie and the bill are going to sink in good, that for some reason my line tie isn't going to be in the way of my weight, to make sure that, you know, if I need to put the line tie in first, whatever. Always, 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 I do this on every bait, not just a new one, but I always do a dry fit. So this is number 1, getting the smallest weight. Should be definitely the one we get the least amount of trouble out of. Pair of pliers are always your best friend to have sitting around. So there's the weight in place. Where we did water test these, some of these holes are a little bit gummed up. There's the nose wire in. The tail wire is something you rarely ever have trouble with. We're going to go ahead and dry fit it too. So right there is going to be about what our finished bait's going to look like. I think that's going to be a pretty good running little dude. And then you've got an option back here on the rear hook hanger, okay? Your option is, do you have it in line, or do you do it crossways on the bait? On most of my homemades that I make myself, I typically like for the line tie to be turned sideways. It actually makes the split ring stand out a little bit more, I feel like, than it does when it's turned in line. And sometimes you can get by with just a little bit larger hook, you know, for both, by turning that split ring, or by turning that hook hanger sideways on the back. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You can have it in line, but you don't want it to just be cockeyed. You want it to either be in line with the bait, or you want it to be what I would consider perpendicular with the bait. One way or the other, you just don't want it to be cockeyed. Same deal with your line tie in the nose. It's really important, obviously, that it is going to be straight up and down vertically. And then the left to right bend, you can figure that out. You can fix that once you actually get it in there, get it glued in, get it secured. Then you start water testing it. Then you can make sure that it's tuned right, because you may think you've got it right here, but then it actually needs bent one way or the other, whether it's because of the bill or the weight, any number of factors at that point. So that number 1 is dry fit. I'm going to go ahead and dry fit the other ones, and then we'll go back and glue them all at the same time. Okay, so we are dry fitting everything right here, and this is a prime example as to why, because on number 3, having to drill that weight cavity there in the belly so deep, it actually is, the line tie on the nose is running through the back of that bait cavity. But it's right at the very top, so I'm going to be able to, just because of that soft copper wire again, so right there it hits. But it's soft enough that I'm going to be able to, you know, to push that on up in there. But that tells me I have to do the line tie first on that particular one. The other ones, it's not, you know, doesn't matter. I can do everything on the nose first, then I can do the weight, then I can do the tail wire. But on that number 3, definitely have to do the nose stuff first before I go any other direction on that one. So let's start with number 1. I guess that's where you're supposed to start. So the smallest weight we need for that one. And I like to start on the nose, is kind of where I like to get going with that at. And I'm going to put the line tie, again, just see how that fits in here. Okay, right there that is. Not too deep. And when you're setting that line tie in there, you want it to be, you don't want it to be quite recessed because again, we don't have any paint on here yet. That's going to take up a little bit of space. You want to make sure that you've got, you know, enough of that sticking out that you're going to be able to get a split ring or your snap or whatever on there. But you also don't want it to be out like that. That's, you don't want that much of it showing. You don't want it back in there like that either. That's not good. Because by the time you get paint, you're not going to be able to get anything on there. So about right in there. That's about perfect as to how deep you want that to sit. The bill, it is always best if you've got that bill slot cut to where the bill can go just straight all the way, smooth to the back, and that helps you to get that in there nice and square. So, all right, away we go. This is I use, you know, a couple different kinds of super glue. This is probably not my preferred one, but it does, I think, work for this situation. It's what I had handy. I didn't want to open up a whole fresh bottle of my usual crankbait glue for this. So, but you just want to get you a good dot there on the nose, and it will actually, the wood will kind of suck it down in there. It's kind of funny how it does that. It'll kind of pull it down into there. But then once I'm going to put that on there, and I'm going to start with that wire and kind of push that glue down in there. I'm going to pull it back out. I'm going to do that again. If you're using really thin glue, sometimes you can just let that that glue will literally just run down into there, but I've got enough glue between that. I'm going to put a little bit more on my wire. Right here. Just run a little bit up the wire. Maybe. There we go. Okay. You want a good, you want a good amount of glue in there. It's totally fine if it runs back out the nose when you're seating this wire in there. Nothing wrong, at all wrong with that. A little deep. Okay, there we go. That's just right. Next up, going to be the bill slot, or the bill, gluing the bill in. Okay, so that's, right there we go. I'm going to have just the bill just barely started in there, and I'm going to put some glue kind of on the back edges. Again, thinner glue here is a plus because it will run back into there a little bit than this particular glue I'm using. It's almost like a gel. You can put it on the back of the bill itself, but I'll be honest, it makes me a little bit nervous because this part here does set pretty quick. You know, too much glue there or anything, and it can make it hard to get that bill nice and straight. So, and you really don't need much to hold the bill in place. This is a very critical step here to make sure. You can see that's at too much of an angle. I've got to move quick to get that before it sets. Try to make that nice and even, as straight as you possibly can. That is a very difficult part to get just perfect. Okay. And that's probably where as much of your variance and every single bait comes in. That one's definitely in there at a little bit of an angle. Let's see if we can straighten it over there just a little bit. I don't know if I moved that very much or not. It's straight enough that one's it'll probably run, we'll probably get a tree running bait out of that one. We'll have to see. But that is such a tedious place to try to get it perfectly straight. Sometimes what I'll actually end up doing is I'll get the bait just how I want it, and if I've got that really good thin glue handy, I'll get the bait set perfect, and I'll just drop drops of glue on both sides so it just runs in there, and I don't actually have to adjust the bill. You know, when it's doing that, that's another option of that. The weight is generally the easiest. Just squirt you some weight in that, or just squirt you some glue into that big hole, a little bit there. And again, just make sure that you end up with your hook hanger in line with the bait. Wipe off any of that excess. Right around through there. Okay, that one's good to go. I think he's got a towel here somewhere. Okay. Wipe off any excess glue there. That one is good. And then for the rear hook hanger, going to do it, you know, similar to what we did there on the front one. See, that one fits in there good. But we are going to turn that one sideways. I like that sideways approach to get a little bit larger hook on there sometimes. Just try to put plenty of glue down in that hole. I think that'll be just fine. I'll put just a little bit more on the wire. Okay. Now something that, you know, some folks may look at this and say, well, man, I've heard about guys doing through wire baits and stuff where they actually split the bait and you know, run a harness. Some people call it through wire, some people call it a harness. I have never done that. I don't want to attempt to try to do that. That just adds so much more work, for one. But number two, I've never saw the point, because to get that back out of this bait, you're going to break the bait. To get the belly weight out of it, you're going to break the bait. To get the line tie out of it, you're going to break the bait. So for me personally, I've never saw the point in any of the baits that I've made of having to do a through wire harness. It's just considerable more work on top of what's already a lot of work that I don't think you really get a lot of benefits out of. Just my personal opinion on that. So there's one. Number one, the lightest weight one, is done. I would not call that perfect on the bill, but I would call it good enough as far as the angle of that one and how straight that one is. I think that it's not so bad off, it would keep it from running straight. So that's what we're kind of going for. All right, number two. It's stressing Biggs out that it's not perfectly straight. That's why he's pacing. You don't know how to make a crankbait. That one's pretty straight. Okay, number two, good to go. Final one. Now, number three was the one that it was really important that I do make sure that I do the nose wire first, due to it running in the back of that weight slot. Gotta make sure I get some glue here in the nose. But the good part of that, just think of it this way, that weight's gonna be pushing against this wire. It's even added strength, you know, to that one. So that's just another way you can think about that one, even being a little bit stronger than any of the rest of them. That's something I try to do from time to time, is to make the wire and the back of the bill actually touch each other so that it just adds a little bit more strength. So yeah, that glue right there holding the weight is also holding that nose wire right in place. Final tail wire going in. Okay, so very last step here. Last thing I'm going to do, I've got a product here called an accelerator, and that really helps that super glue to set up extremely fast. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to let number three set. Number one was the first one I got done. Any little holes I've got around those wires, around the bill, around the belly weight, any of those places where I've got some little gaps, I'm going to go back, I'm going to fill them with super glue, and then I'm going to hit them with a squirt of that accelerator. And that accelerator will keep that super glue from soaking up any further, and it will just make it rock hard right in place, right where it is. So that is a great way for the way that we're doing this. Again, a very clean way to make this. The bait would be painted before I'm assembling, you know, putting the bill and the line tie and stuff in. So, but going through this process, this is the way we're doing it. This is just a deal to help, you know, seal up any of those holes so that I don't have any feedback from that as far as how the bait's actually going to run. So, going to kind of fill all these gaps and then hit them with a squirt with that accelerator and make that glue set up real quick. You've got time to do, you know, 2 or 3 spots before you have to squirt that accelerator on it. Just kind of blow that in there to where it's sitting nice and smooth. how you want it to. Just make sure you don't squirt your super glue with the accelerator. Otherwise it's over with. Okay, so there's that. So now we're gonna do the belly. Weight. A little bit of those gaps around it. Nice and smooth. Now for the tail wire, it's pretty good, but might as well go ahead and touch it just a little bit. Okay. And like that on the nose or on the bill right there, completely hard. It's amazing to me how fast it makes that stuff set up. It's crazy. I didn't know about that product for a really long time, and it is kind of a lifesaver. We used to epoxy or putty these holes and stuff. It was such a pain. Epoxy's heavy. Putty was just aggravating to work with. That product right there is a major, major time saver. Okay. All right, so that is everything here. We'll let those dry just for a minute. They'll be good to go. But we're going to go, next step, man, is actually to water test them. These won't be baits I'll ever fish with. These are just stuff that I wanted to do for this video. But we'll take them over here to the pool, water test them. You really could at this point. You've got them built, you've got them assembled. As long as you let them dry completely from where we had done that water test with them, just to see the buoyancy on them. you need to make sure that they dried completely before you ever tried to seal them. But if they did, man, you absolutely no reason to just trash them at this point. You could certainly dry them out and fish with them. So let's head to the pool. Let's see what these things do underwater. Hopefully they swim. I mean, I'm betting they do, but you never know. Old number one he may do loop-de-loop. So let's go give him a swim. We're going to see what it's going to do. We're going to start with number one, that lightest one, and going to go up to number three. One little quick tidbit. When we did the water test, we didn't even have hooks and split rings on it. Didn't have the bill, didn't have the line tie. So I don't even know if number three is going to float now, just to be quite honest. But we're going to put it on there. These are number 4 short shank VMC hybrid trebles. Same hooks, same split rings on every single bait. That fits that bait pretty well. That would probably be the hooks that I would use it on. And then one final thing, I've just got these on a snap. I like to fish my crankbaits on a snap sometimes. Sometimes I'll tie to the split ring. You always want one thing. You don't want two on the nose of it. And for the ability just to switch these out real quick and test them, that snap is certainly the way to go. So without further ado, let's see what bait number one, the lightest one, let's see what it does. And this is no additional tuning. This is just however I had glued that in. It is going hard to the right, okay? I've got a pair of pliers right here, but it is wiggling. It is trying to dive, but he is going hard to the right. But now look, if you look at that close, that line tie is bent over pretty well. So that bait is kicking hard this way. You want to bend it the opposite. So let's go ahead. Let's try to get it about straight. It's pretty close to straight. So let's see where that puts us. Went a little too far. He's going a little to the left. So that tells me we're going to be able to get a straight running bait out of this though. If that got it overkill. All right. Bring it back in just a little bit. And that's really where you see the nice, easy tuning benefits of that copper wire. Super easy to bend and make those real fine adjustments. Boy, that's pretty close there now. That's a pretty running little dude. That's pretty slick. It doesn't matter how many baits you've made. When you do that, you've made a bait, and you throw it out there and you get a nice good wiggle out of it. It is definitely a sense of accomplishment. Now this is number one. This is the lightest one in the water with the split rings, with the hooks on it. No paint still. That's not too fast of a rising bait. What we thought wasn't going to be a very good, a very good weight on that bait is actually performing pretty good, I gotta say. Now, of course, it's no sealer, so it could be soaking up a little bit of water as we're testing it here, getting a little bit heavier, but number one is not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, let's go to number 2. See what it looks like. I'm gonna go ahead and give a little rough tune on that, just given how that last one did. Just try to get it right in the center right from the start. I think this one might just run as well. I can definitely feel in the rod tip. Okay, still running to the right a good bit. You can definitely feel casting. You can feel that little bit of additional weight compared to number 1. You wouldn't think that, you know, a gram or something would be a noticeable difference, but it truly is. Still needs to come a little bit more left. Definitely a little bit more cast. There we go. We've got a pretty true runner there. Maybe even just a little bit of hunt going on with it. And I'm reeling that bait pretty quick just to try to see, you know, if it's wanting to wander side to side. You can slow it down and it's extremely true at that speed. You know, speed it up a little bit. That's where you're really going to see. Still plenty of rise. I gotta be honest. Number 2 has still got, you know, plenty of rise to it, even without painting stuff on it. A little bit slower, just a little bit, but definitely still plenty of rise to number 2. Another very good true runner. No question in my mind you'd catch a fish on that one. So now let's step it on up to old boat anchor, heavy number 3 here. The line tie in, it's a little bit offset. And to straighten him up there some. Okay. I don't know if number 3 is going to float. Just don't know if he's going to. It is, well, now that right there would cast. You could really sling that one out there, but he does sink. Just between the hooks, the split rings, the line ties, and the bill, that difference in that one, we have a sinking bait here. Now over there in the tank, it still floated. You know, still floated pretty good. But he is a foreshore sinker without clear coat, without paint, without top coat, none of that stuff. This would be a very fast sinking bait. Once you, it's going down as fast as number 2 was coming up. So this would be a very fast sinking bait by the time that you got it painted and everything. The action of all 3 of them is really good. I feel like they are all, you know, very true running baits. So pretty proud of that. I would definitely go with the weight of number 2. Okay, that would for sure be the one that I would go with, which I think was a 3 gram weight was what I had in that. That 5 and number 3 would definitely be too much. Even actually cutting it down like I had mentioned, or getting a 4 gram weight, I still think as fast as that 5 grams sinking, I still think that it would be too much. But by the time you get number 2 painted with that 3 gram weight and everything else, it would be a very slow rising bait. I do still think it would float, which is what you'd want, but I think that would be the ideal size to go with that. And you know, you could always lighten up your hooks a little bit, go with a little bit thinner wire. That's just what I like, are those VMC hybrid trebles. They are a little bit heavier gauge, but that's it, man. It's been a fun deal for me to help, you know, hopefully share some knowledge. It is a process making a crankbait. You know, if I sat down and wanted to make like 10 crankbaits of this, you know, if I wanted to make 10 of these, to really sit down and do it start to finish as quick as I could to get 10 of them pumped out, it would take me a couple hours time, having everything sitting there, everything that I need to do just to make 10 of them. It would take me a couple hours time. So it's not something that you're going to do really quick and, you know, be able, once you even have all the knowledge and have everything sitting right there. And there were a lot of steps, I'll be honest. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't even have time to cover in this. So we tried to hit the high points and do the best of it we could. It is a tedious process. It's a fun process. It's something I've enjoyed doing from the time that I was, you know, first got into bass fishing and first got into fishing crankbaits. So thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this. Be sure to leave a comment or something, and be sure to like and subscribe on the channel. Thanks for watching.